Hello and welcome to Healing Tips from the Heart, Intuition with Helpers, Healers, and Guides. I am your host, Dr. Lori Hops, licensed psychologist, writer, and artist. I've explored mind, body, and spirit related to intuition, or your personal guidance system, since early childhood. Meet my guests who have learned from their personal and professional lives to explore vast realms of knowing, synchronicities, and overcoming challenges. Their stories may inspire you with tools to enhance your daily living and relationships. Hello and welcome everyone with my special guest today, Dr. Judy Tsafrir. Dr. Judy is a holistic healer, activist, artist, and gardener. She has a private practice of holistic psychiatry and psychoanalysis in Newton, Massachusetts, in the United States. She's a board-certified adult and child psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, and she's on the faculty of Harvard Medical School and the Boston Psychoanalytic Institute, and she teaches and supervises at the Cambridge Health Alliance. She has not only all of that, but a lot of training that she has gone through working with spiritual and developmental approaches to healing, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, helping patients wean off of psychiatric medications, and so on. And she also works with the fields of energy healing, esoteric modalities that we'll be talking about soon, including astrology, tarot, and other ways of understanding things about mind, body, and spirit. Her new book is Sacred Psychiatry, Bridging the Personal and Transpersonal to Transform Health and Consciousness. And this came out in 2024. It's about holistic approaches to cultivating resilience and courage during these very transformative times that we're all going through on the planet. And welcome so much today, Dr. Judy. So good to see you.
Thank you so much, Lori, for having me. I'm delighted to be here to be in conversation with you.
Thank you. And I'd like our audience to know I have not yet had the pleasure of meeting you in person, but I look forward to that one day, I hope. But I have met you online, and we just sort of like clicked, it seemed, almost from the...
Very much so.
Yeah, right from the immediate, and it have a lot in common, and kind of kindred spirits is the way I'm feeling about it. So I'm so thrilled to let other people know about your work and who you are. So thank you for
Thanks so
coming
much, Lori,
today.
for having me.
Yes. So is there anything else you'd like to add to that description of yourself, or you'd like the audience to know about you?
I think that was pretty comprehensive.
Okay.
I mean, uh, most recently, I've had a lot of fun, and um, it's been very meaningful to me to create these little videos that are on Instagram and TikTok about different topics related to sacred psychiatry. And that's been a big project, a new one for me. And I'm finding it before I was not interested in social media and sort of didn't really, and I'm not really a consumer of it myself, but I'm finding that it's an amazing way to communicate and to share ideas.
It becomes a public forum.
Yeah. And I used to have a blog. I have a blog still, but people don't seem to read it and have as much, like, it doesn't reach people in the same way that Instagram does or TikTok.
Yes, and different audiences and different focus. I'm similar to you. I didn't have much of a social media presence for most of my career, and I'm finding it very captivating. And I personally think that it's a gentle bridge towards the intuitive, towards the telepathic.
It's so interesting. Tell me about that.
Well, here we're switching gears, switching roles a little, but and this I think is a good segue into what you're involved with. But when you think about our natural innate tendencies and natural inborn skills and abilities that are nonverbal, they're based in communication in the more subtle realm. When you think about, let's say, a newborn and how it communicates its needs or relates to its caregivers, or when you are in love and you're not with your beloved and you're at a distance, how do you communicate when you don't have the internet, when you don't have language? And so we communicate with our imagination, with our hearts, with our mental telepathy, being able to place the other within a realm of nearness despite physical distance. And so it seems to me, and you get this when you read, let's say, a beautiful passage from an author who maybe had died thousands of years ago, but you have an immediacy with them. And I think that the internet is a half a step towards not needing language, reading, nearness, etc. And so we're moving towards that.
That's so interesting. Um, I was thinking when you said that about kind of like my own process about what I decide to talk about. And that feels very intuitively guided and led and um, developing in a very organic and natural way that doesn't feel like it's necessarily coming from my um, small self.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes. So you have worked in many different realms. I just take it from the little bit that I know about you. And how is it that you would say that you use that larger self to connect to some of these areas that you're so proficient in, whether it's astrology or working with clients or tarot?
Well, I mean, like I daily engage in spiritual practice. So, for instance, like before I see my patients, I ask for guidance so that I'm not just trying to um, be helpful with just my little Judy self. Um, um, and then, there's something about when you're with a person, with a patient, and you're sitting together. And I much prefer, honestly, being in person than I do being on Zoom. Although some patients, and I totally understand it, want to be on Zoom because they don't want to drive 45 minutes to see me and drive 45 minutes home. It's like such a huge time investment. But I do feel like for me, it's different being in person together, and that there's just some kind of energetic exchange with these two bodies in the room together. Um, and that there's something that is healing about my presence. And so these are all like not necessarily 3D or left brain types of effects that are at play in my work. Um, when you use astrology or tarot, the archetypes can have like so many different expressions and so many different meanings. So an archetype is a like pattern of like a pattern of behavior or a pattern of character or a pattern of energy that is characteristic. So there's like an archetype that's associated with the sign of Aries, and for each of the zodiac signs, or there's archetypes that are associated. like the symbolic meaning of the planets. That's also another word of saying archetype. And so you're using your intuition to um, synthesize and create and integrate all the different archetypes together. And it's not, you can't just do it with your left brain. It's way too complex. Um, so those are some ideas that I have.
I love that. I love what you just said, that it's too complex for the left brain. There are others who would say, well, how can that be? The left brain is the computer, etc. So, can't you just put in your birth date into a software program online and then get your chart and understand and maybe plug in the day and where the planets are? And isn't it all like a blueprint right there in black and white?
Well, there are people who are, I mean, there are astrology software programs that do just that, and AI can do that. Um, but it's quite different than having like an energetic exchange with another human being
True. And so
qualitatively.
what do you think that what have you seen that you bring to that experience when you go beyond the left brain? Or what emerges?
I, I guess it's something distilled, something essential, something that has to do with my soul connecting with their soul. Um, and that's not very, um, it's pretty hard to articulate because it's kind of ineffable.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're moving it out of the realm of um, how shall I put this? Cookie cutter?
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, book astrology
Yes. And
or
what you
cookbook tarot.
right. And what you said about being in person and the energy of the exchange, it's very immediate. It's very tangible. It's very probably moving. Um, and there's information and exchange that maybe you can't even put language to.
Exactly. I mean, you can sort of like and it's just interesting, like when you open the door of the waiting area and you greet the person sitting there, you just like instantly already have taken like their temperature, like you already, have like oh, they're feeling kind of low energy today, or oh, they're in a good mood, or
Right. Yeah. And sometimes those messages come through the door even before the appointment and after.
it's not true that like you can't experience that on Zoom, but I
Mhm.
just I just I do miss having everybody come in person. I mean, nobody ever had a phone call with me unless, there was a big snowstorm or they were ill. I mean, everybody would just make the time and come in.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet it also allows us more flexibility. So there's back and forth about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was more drained doing online therapy. But after about the first 3 months, I started to do spiritual practice online. And it's something opened up a new skill set or ability to communicate. And I kind of went into almost like a super communication
Mhm.
through with groups online. These were practice groups that I'm in as a participant, not as a leader. And it enhanced my psychotherapy Zoom experience such that I didn't get drained in the same way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that
Mhm.
was kind of an interesting thing. I still also prefer in
Mhm.
person.
During the pandemic, when the weather was permitting, I live in Boston, so half the year it's not, but or maybe two-thirds of the year it's not, or a third of the year it's not. I set up an office on my porch.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's nice. That's beautiful.
yeah.
So you talked a little bit about astrology, and I think most
Yeah.
people know what that is. And maybe you can give a brief description for someone who's not familiar with it or maybe confuses it with astronomy. But then I
hmm
wanted to
hmm
also talk about tarot, which people may not be as familiar with.
Okay, so astrology is an ancient wisdom tradition, and it's been practiced like around the world um, from like many centuries, for many centuries. And there's all kinds of different astrology, but essentially, it the premise is that the movement of the stars and the position of the stars and the planets correlate with the experience of human beings on Earth, and that there's a way of studying the stars and like studying the position of the stars at the moment of a person's birth that then is correlated with certain experiences that they are going to be invited to have in this lifetime, or that they, with certain strengths that they are born with and certain vulnerabilities. I don't practice a kind of astrology that is predictive or that is like simply like like that it's fated. Like there's very much room for a person to understand the prevailing um, archetypes and choose, like if you take, let's say the person has Neptune figured prominently in their chart. Neptune can be associated with uh, spirituality and cosmic consciousness and imagination and creativity and connection with all that is, but it also can be associated with delusion and with addiction. So you don't know like what a person is going to do with that placement of Neptune in their chart. And so there are people who can do astrology readings just by looking at the chart, and I think they must have some kind of capacity that I do not have. Um, like I really need to have a conversation with the person and ask them, like that these are the potential ways that this could be expressed. And sometimes, a person will at one point in their life express one facet of the archetype and at another point in their life express another one. And like as a person, it's so different to read the astrology chart of a 25-year-old versus a 60-year-old.
Absolutely. So there's always room for growth. This is my takeaway from what you've said, that although there are placeholders for certain tendencies, and as you said, invitations for things to happen, including wonderful things, and horrible things, how we negotiate it, how we learn. Oh, we have a cat. For those of you who don't, we're only on audio. We had a beautiful cat that just showed up across the.
Moonfire.
Yes. So hello, darling. Oh, beautiful black cat. So the invitation is to meet these challenges, opportunities with a variety of skills, lessons, characteristics, tendencies, inclinations, lessons.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like for instance, you could have like um, the planet Jupiter, which is often associated with blessing and with good fortune. And like it could be um, in relationship in the sky at the moment. It could be in relationship with your natal Mercury. And you could be someone who always wanted to write a book.
Mhm.
But like if you don't do the work, like if you just, let that go by, the book's not going to happen.
That would be me as of April 2025. But I do actually have a book idea that I'm just putting together right now. And interestingly, to use this myself as an example, although I haven't written the book, I have done a lot of writing. And the thing that came to me over the weekend was, in fact, most of it's already written.
Yes.
because of all the other writing I've done. And so
Yes,
what I
yes.
needed was the framework. And
Oh, yes,
now that I have the
yes,
framework, I have the chapters, I have the
yes.
material, I know what I can pull in. It can be multimedia, etc. So for those of you who see this podcast in the future, maybe my book will be ready to for you to enjoy. But yes, you
That
have
that
to do
was
the
that
work.
was the same as for me for with my process.
Yeah.
That I had been working on it for so long and had written so many different things, but I didn't have it organized. And I actually hired a developmental editor who helped me create a structure that then, like I had most of the writing already done.
Yeah, and mine aren't for a book. They're blogs and articles and talks I've
Yeah.
given and research I've
Yep.
done, and they aren't for the book. I didn't know what the book would be. So
Right.
anyway,
Right.
but yeah, you have to do the work. And so I love how you bring the personal in to the transcendent and to the bigger picture. So like you get the blueprint, you get the download for the person's astrology, you understand the dynamics of the current age, we're all going through this massive, unprecedented change right now as a world and as individuals too, of course. But then you bring the personal, your understanding of that particular moment with this person and yourself. Because although, yes, you get a temperature read for the person when you open the door, they get one for you too.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So it's this
Although
beautiful
it's,
dance.
but I mean, it's very common for a patient to say, "How are you?" And I don't say, "Oh my God, I just had such a fight with my daughter." I don't
No, of
say that,
course. Of course. But they can sense the
Yes,
subtlety. If you're not
yes,
feeling well, if you're a little overwhelmed, not
yes,
everyone. Some people are so burdened by their own story that they really
right,
they're not in their best place to bridge to you.
right.
Others
No,
are,
it's definitely it's definitely there's reciprocity and mutuality and mutual sensing of one another, but
yeah,
the roles are so different, in terms of and it's not like I never self-disclose because I do it quite a bit when it feels like it would be relevant or helpful, but it's just it's this very strange agreement that we've made that we're going to each take certain roles with each other.
yeah,
Like there's plenty of patients who I would have loved to be friends with, but you just
yeah,
don't do that,
right. Yeah.
because that then undermines the other way that you're relating together.
I had the pleasure of reading your book, and you do quite a bit of self-disclosure there. So applause for
Mhm.
transparency and what you chose to share and why. And it's very specific purpose for what you share to advance the positioning of the book and what you're trying to communicate. But I admire you for sharing so much. And your
Thank you.
family too. Like I was kind of surprised about that, frankly. You don't see that too often, but it was refreshing and it very humanizing. And I could see that you were
Mhm.
really coming from your heart.
Mhm. Well, I think it's people feel like you're authentic and relatable when you also make yourself vulnerable.
Yeah. Yes. So how does this relate to tarot? And if you could describe
I
what that
just,
is briefly, because some people
okay.
like tarot, I don't know.
Yeah, well, it can be said a lot of different ways.
Okay.
I say tarot, but it could be said tarot. So tarot is a form of divination, and so is astrology. And I mean, essentially, the definition of divination is like a conversation with the divine.
Hmm.
And so there's the tarot, which is a very structured and specific type of divinatory tool that consists of 78 cards. It's always 78 cards, and 22 of them are called major arcana, which deal with very kind of huge themes in a human life. And then 56 of them are minor arcana, and they deal with sort of more regular, everyday, ordinary reality kind of things. And there are four suits, and the four suits are linked to the elements. There are cups, which are water. There are wands, which are fire. There are pentacles, which are earth, and there are swords, which are air. Now, this is the classic tarot deck because in the last probably 15 years, people have created all kinds of different tarot decks and had, suits that were not just those standard ones. Like there may be, instead of swords, there may be birds. Instead of wands, there may be feathers. There's all kinds of new ones that have been developed. But essentially, the way that it is used is that you kind of center yourself and ground yourself and set sacred space, by just your intention. And you might, um, want to light a candle or use some kind of smoke to smudge yourself or to call in the spirits. And then you ask a question. And that way it's different than astrology. In astrology, you don't like ask a question that way. I mean, if somebody might come for a reading and say, I would like to get some, insight about um, what's going on for me in terms of my work life or my love life or something like that. But with tarot, it's more specific and narrow. So, and you don't want to ask a question that's a yes or no question. That is not a good question. You want to ask a question that is more like, what do I need to be aware of? Or something that expands your consciousness. So you wouldn't want to say, am I going to get the job? But like, if you want the job, like, what do I need to be aware of in order to um, have the best possibility of getting the job? And then you would do like, I mean, you can pull any number of cards. There's a, like when people come to me for a tarot reading, there's a typical spread that I often do that's a 5 card spread. And
Mhm.
each card is designated as having a particular meaning. So the first card is the heart of the matter. The second card is the strengths that they bring to the situation. The third card is their vulnerabilities. The fourth card is their hopes and fears. And the fifth card is the resolution, which can be read either how things are resolved or what they need to consider to resolve to do, either sort of actively or passively. Um, and then the way that I do it is that I ask the person who I'm reading for to look at the card and to describe it to me. And it's just so fascinating. It's kind of like one of these projective tests,
Yeah.
which that's like a kind of psychological term, psychological test where
Hmm.
like what a person sees has so much to do with what's inside of them. But sometimes, I mean, people will just describe the card in a very standard way, but sometimes they'll have like a very unusual take on the card and see something so different than what is commonly said about it or how it's commonly interpreted. And I always think that whatever they say is really important. And I try to marry what they say with the traditional meaning of the card and
Right.
with the space that it's holding. So like the heart of the matter or their strengths or their vulnerabilities. So
That is brilliant. I haven't heard someone use the deck in that way before.
mm,
You're using it like a Rorschach or a TAT card.
is part is in that aspect of it because I also bring in the traditional meaning of it.
Yes.
And sometimes it'll just be so interesting, like the whole deck, the whole reading, there'll be no cards that represent like the element of earth,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they're having some kind of problem with manifestation, or their card will be very, very heavy on swords or air, which is very much about the intellect and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes can have to do with you know, overthinking things or using your thinking in a unhelpful way. Um, so you just the more you do it, the more you have like a grasp of the potential common responses to the cards, and it is an amazing system of um, divination. So that's the tarot.
Yes.
And then there's also something that are called oracle cards. And again, in the last 15, 20 years, there's just been an explosion of different ones that are available, incredibly beautiful ones. And they can be themed in all kinds of different ways. And they don't have the structure of the tarot. They don't have the 78 cards. They could have 44 cards or 50 cards or any number of cards, and they don't have the structure of the suits that way. Like they could be themed with herbs, or they could be themed with trees, or with animals, or with constellations, or with um, crystals, or with shamanic themes, or I mean, there's every kind of
Fairy
card
tales.
deck. Yeah, fairy tales, very much so, you know, like anything. And so then a person will like again ask like a question. I mean, what I commonly do is that I leave that very open-ended. I say, what does the universe want me to know? What
Oh.
is the universe trying to tell me? You know, what do I need to be aware of or paying attention to? That's like
Hmm.
my favorite question for
Hmm.
myself, you know, because I mean, I'm constantly using the cards, both Oracle decks and the tarot for myself. Um, so, so I just ask, you know, what do I need to be paying attention to?
Yeah. And then I imagine that you get insight that
Very much so.
yeah.
It stimulates insight. I mean, I have a practice with accessing the Akashic records, and I've also started doing readings for people uh, with that. But the Akashic record is this idea that there's a field. It's kind of like the internet of what you were saying. Like there's this field of energy um, that is like full of information. It's like everything that ever happened in the past, everything that is happening now, everything that ever will happen. And that by saying a prayer, you can access that information and connect with the record keepers and ask for guidance. So I basically do that most mornings. I'll meditate briefly, then I'll ask for, well, I'll say the prayer and then I'll meditate briefly and see what comes. But mostly what comes is when I sit down in front of my typewriter and my computer and start to type, and then it's just what I need to be aware of, or and it's so interesting. I mean, there's a do you know who Elizabeth Gilbert is?
Mhm.
She's
Author.
an author.
Yes.
Author, right. She wrote a very famous book, Eat, Pray, Love, which is not
Yes.
my favorite of hers. I love her novel, The Signature of All Things. And she also wrote a very wonderful book, I think, about creativity that's called Big Magic.
Yes.
Um,
I love that book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she is now engaged in this process of this project that is, she has like this Substack that is called Letters from Love.
Oh,
And essentially, she every day writes herself a letter. And it's like, essentially, it's like a letter from her higher self to her personality self. And I feel like the Akashic Records is it, accessing them and the guidance that I get is something like that. You know, like, and in her letters from love, she's like, "Oh, Liz," you know, like talking to a little girl, you know, like, and like, so if like if you get a download or guidance that is in some kind of way critical or harsh or um, mean-spirited, that is not your higher self talking to you.
right.
And that's not the record keepers talking to you. They're only talking to you with love. And
Yeah.
it's
With
very,
love,
very,
love, intimacy, and respect,
yes,
and
respect,
and
respect.
a deep friendship. It's like
Yes,
the way that you
yes.
wish like your best friend would speak to you when they're in a really good mood and
Yeah,
being
yeah,
generous. Yeah.
yeah. And wise, you know, wise.
Yes.
And like I have one patient. Boy, oh boy, this is an interesting story. Um, like when she came to see me, we looked at her astrology chart together. And her chart was just loaded with creativity, loaded with leadership, loaded with power. And she was just not experiencing that. She was like so in a kind of victimized position with both her mother and her husband. And I was like, wow, like this person is so not expressing her chart.
Hmm.
And so, and this is something common that people come to me and they have no spiritual practice, but they want to have one. They would like to have one, but they don't know how to go about it.
Hmm.
So I talked with her about these, like writing a letter to herself. I mean, she's like everything I say to her, she like does it and gets so
Oh,
much out of it. Like that's like such a wonderful person to work with, who's
yeah.
like a total, she's totally like so different now. Like she gets up an hour early and writes herself a letter,
Oh.
and it's like this special time with herself. And she's just like, you know, telling her mother, no, her husband, no. And it's fantastic, you know?
How beautiful. I also have, know exactly what you're talking about with the writing and that personal connection. That is, it's almost like there's a whole library of information that's waiting to be
Mhm.
delivered directly to us that is
Yes,
handpicked, specific, accurate, and timely.
yes, 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 yes.
And all you have to do is learn how to tune in, and then it
Right,
just flows. But
right.
it does take practice for some people to tune to the right frequency, to kind of get out of your own way, try different things. When I was first learning to do what I would call channeled writing, which, is basically the same thing what you're describing.
Yeah,
Um, right, not from my left brain, not from my
yeah,
personality, not from my fears and all the rest, but
yeah,
from other
yeah,
space. I had to play around for a really long time just with the transmission mode, meaning pencil or sketch pad or laptop, or like I needed drawing, or
yeah,
I wasn't sure, like everything was kind of like stilted and awkward,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
didn't flow. I was overthinking. I had to unlearn how to be a writer.
yeah.
The critical writing voice would come in, the over planning, the creativity.
Mhm,
So it took a long time,
mhm,
years,
mhm.
to slowly kind of push that away. And now I
That's
can just like
interesting.
in a second just drop something immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have taken two like formal courses of study with accessing the Akashic records. And the second one that I took, I really thought was fantastic, was this person named Josephine Hardman. And the most wonderful thing that I got from her, like she spent so much time talking about the ways in which we um, prevent ourselves from uh, valuing and accepting what we get.
Oh,
That it was like she said, it's like ironic, like a person asks for guidance and they get it and then they reject it. They say, I'm making it up, you know?
or I don't
And
like what I heard.
yeah, but that was like the most liberating thing to me, like that I switched, I like consciously made a decision that if I set sacred space and if I say the prayer, I get what I get and I let it stand and I
Yeah.
don't second guess it.
Yep.
I just let it stand.
Yep.
Maybe I don't understand it. Maybe it seems like bullshit. Maybe, it feels like that's just, wishful thinking, what I'm saying to myself. I just don't do that anymore.
That's fabulous. It's very freeing.
Yeah. And that was thanks to her, like her it's pointing out the irony of that. You ask for guidance, you get it, and then you reject it.
But isn't that how a lot of people live their lives?
Oh.
Tell me what to do, and your 20,000 people have told you your whole life exactly what to do. And you're like, but not that. Anything but that. So it's not so uncommon. But yeah, to break through that
Mhm.
and to allow it to just sit and just be, is there's some powerfulness in that. And the other thing that I've heard that as well. The other thing I heard that opened my eyes too was when you open a sacred space through prayer, through intention, through just saying, I'm dedicating this next whatever amount of time, pay attention to absolutely everything that happens. The
Mhm. Mhm.
thoughts, the interruptions, like earlier today when we were talking just now, the cat came through when we were talking about
Right.
astrology, and I'm going to go back and see what was that exact moment because there was probably a message there. And it's not
Oh,
to
that's
over
interesting.
interpret, but it's also to not
Yeah.
ignore.
Yeah.
The sudden headache, the butterfly that comes across,
Yeah. Yeah.
suddenly
Yeah.
remembering a conversation from a long time ago, whatever it
Well, I think
is.
that's an important reminder. Very important.
Yep, yep.
Love that.
Beautiful. Oh, I love so many of these points you're bringing home. There's a beauty in all of them, and that they work together. And I know we wanted to speak about several different things. We are running close to our time together. Would you be able to switch gears a little and talk a little bit about the nervous system? Because I
Yeah.
think that this speaks to the changes that we're all going through.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So, I mean, these are incredibly transformative times, and there's very explicit astrological correlates to what is going on now. But because the rate of change is so accelerated, and because we're just evolving as a species, and there's so much going on that this creates a lot of anxiety and fear in many people, I would say in most people, and certainly in people who come to see me. Um, and so, a big part of what I think is important with people who come to see me is that they learn to regulate their nervous system. And there are certain practices that people can do that will help them get out of a state of stress and fight or flight. People don't even realize that they are in a state of sympathetic arousal. They're so used to feeling that way. But it's very hard for any kind of healing to go on if a person is in a stressed out state. So, over the course of time, I've morphed from what I recommended initially to then something else. And now the most recent thing that I'm recommending to my patients is a program called Primal Trust. And
okay.
it's just fantastic. It's just so much psychoeducation that's part of it, and so many very brilliant, effective practices that have to do with eye yoga and certain meditative techniques and certain breathing practices that just a person can, like themselves, calm themselves down through these kinds of um, practices. And so, like, many patients come to see me because they want to wean from psychiatric medications. Like, somebody doesn't come to see me to get on medicine because that's not what I do. I try to help
Mhm.
people get off of it. And part of getting off of it, very often, mostly always, has to do with them doing nervous system retraining and limbic system retraining, because then, they're going to be supporting themselves, and, you know, they were put on the medications to begin with because there was something that was, you know, amped up or, dysregulated about their nervous system.
Or too sluggish.
Too sluggish.
I'm thinking someone
Yeah,
who's
I mean,
depressed.
yeah, but people who are depressed, they're sluggish, but they also are they're they often have like a lot of cortisol, they have their stress response,
True.
and the cortisol is related to the sympathetic nervous system, even though they're sluggish.
Yes, good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, speaking of the antidepressants, I just learned something that, I mean, most psychiatrists don't know this, and everybody should know this, that I mean, like the class of drugs, the SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, like Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil, Celexa, all of those. We have serotonin receptors on our bones, and people who take those medicines have bone loss and are more at risk of osteoporosis, and nobody talks about that.
Wow.
And the threshold for prescribing them is so low, and like it's the Zoloft is the 12th most commonly prescribed drug in the United States.
Wow.
And on top of it, there's studies that really question if their efficacy is any more than placebo.
Yeah. Yes. You're making me put some pieces together about the bone issues.
Mhm.
Yeah. Uh, s- uh,
So
knowing about people who shouldn't have their bones shouldn't have broken given what
yeah,
happened. Yeah, but they
yeah,
did, and it
yeah,
was shattering bones. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
interesting. Yeah. So, can you do you want to describe a little bit more about this amazing intervention that you're so excited
Well,
about now?
I don't like teach my patients myself.
Okay.
They sign up for a program on the internet that's called Primal Trust, and
Okay.
it's a membership. It's a monthly membership. It costs like $99. Although if a person is a healthcare practitioner, they are entitled to sign up for free because the person who originated Dr. Kat King is so invested in spreading the word about this that she's giving it away for free.
Wow.
Um, she's very impressive. So, like there'll be like exercises about presencing. Like people can be like very dissociated. So exercises where, you say, I'm here like right now, and you'll tune into your senses. Or
Hmm.
there's exercises with the eyes, like looking like in different directions with your eyes, or
Hmm.
looking close up and looking far away. But, like I ask that my patients spend like half an hour a day practicing these exercises. And there's
Hmm.
also classes that they can participate in, um, that, groups where they can practice. And there's also, they have the opportunity of joining a small group. Like I have a friend who connected with 5 other people through the Primal Trust, and they meet weekly and they discuss the practices and like what's going on in their life, but they're not allowed to talk about their symptoms because so many people who are chronically ill, all they think about is their symptoms. All they think about is like, I'm never going to get better. What does this symptom mean? Should I try this supplement? It's like a rabbit hole of endless thinking about it. And
Yes.
that is what needs to stop.
It's so understandable that it does because it's center state,
Yes,
old, name and
exactly.
lights, right? So of course you're
Yeah,
going to focus on it. But yeah, to get that to create the community connection around
yeah,
solution rather than problem is
right,
a
right.
brilliant idea. And does this program also use any of the energy meridian or chakra systems for self-care as
I
well?
don't, that I am not aware of, but
Okay.
I have only been exposed to the level one. She has a level two training that's about addressing trauma, and a
Okay.
level three training, which I'm not even sure what it is, but she's gonna like, you could, if you were interested in learning
Mhm.
about it, you could sign up for it for free because you're a practitioner.
Yeah.
And she's meeting with us once a month, and she's running through the whole thing in a kind of condensed form so that you could just like learn about it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I can already feel the audience responding so favorably to this
yeah.
information. So thank you. We are running to the end of our time together, and I know we could sit and talk for hours more. There were other topics that we had to edit our
Mhm.
desires on. But is there anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye for today?
Well, I would like people to read my book because I feel as though the book contextualizes like these times that we're in through the lens of astrology that is very like helps us make sense of things. And also like the heart of the book is the longest chapter is about developing a multidimensional sense of yourself. So what are all the different kinds of practices that you can do that help you connect with sort of non-ordinary aspects of your reality that are supportive to well-being and to uh, trust and to feeling expanded. And um, there's the it's all about like creating resilience during this time. So there's ideas about, diet and what's the most supportive diet, and ideas about, if there's relationships that are toxic, there's no way that you can heal if you're in a like really bad relationship. So I think it has a lot of really good ideas to help people um, navigate these really tough times that we're in.
Oh boy, do we need it. Thank you for writing the book.
Thank you.
Yeah, and now others can read it and share it and learn from it, and
And
not
it's very
everyone.
accessible.
Yeah,
It's not a big fat book, and
yeah.
it's, I think, written clearly.
And as I mentioned earlier, you share yourself and your stories so
Mhm.
colorfully and with such immediacy and relatability. I felt like you were kind of
Mhm.
talking right there with me when I
Mhm.
was reading
Mhm.
it. So it's not overly left brain, as we started talking
Mhm.
about at the beginning of the talk. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's all
Mhm.
that beautifulness that we talk about with the presence and so on. Well, thank you so much. There's so much wisdom here, and just as you said, it's about the person, bringing the person and making it alive, come alive. And so thank you for making these topics come alive for all of
Well,
us
thank you
today.
so much for having me and for the opportunity to share my perspectives.
Yes, thank you. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. If you want to learn more, you can visit my website for podcast and resources at hopshealingtips.com. You can also like, share, and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only and is not providing healthcare advice. Please seek guidance from your professional healthcare team should you need assistance.